You are 41 when 74 passengers board an ordinary flight. Less than an hour later, the airplane is scattered across a hillside in western North Carolina. 23 passengers are dead. Your first officer is dead. You are alive. 18 months later, investigators reduced the final minutes to one number: 40 seconds. The delay before the correct procedure began. They study it for months. You replay it forever. But the crash is only the beginning. Your 11-year-old son asks, "Are you going to fly again?" You do not know. Your body is broken. Your career suspended. The cockpit returns when you close your eyes. Yet 2 years and 4 months later, you sit in the left seat, push the thrust levers forward, and discover whether surviving the crash was easier than taking off after it. To understand why, return to the last ordinary morning. You wake at 4:30 in a hotel room in Charlotte. You have 11,000 hours in your logbook, and you have flown this route 200 times. You shower, dress, and eat a granola bar in the elevator because you are not hungry, but know you should eat something. In the crew van, your first officer, Kevin, tells you about the restaurant he found the night before. He is 34. His daughter just turned 2. He shows you a photograph while the van moves through the dark, and you look at it for a second longer than you normally would. At the airport, the weather briefing shows icing at altitude and a frontal system moving faster than forecast. Maintenance has signed off the aircraft. You review the release, complete the pre-flight, and brief the departure and the terrain west of Charlotte. Nothing demands more than the normal level of attention. That is what makes it dangerous. Not because you are careless, because ordinary mornings train you to expect ordinary endings. 74 passengers board. Some are going home, some are going to meetings, funerals, or people they love. Most do not look into the cockpit. Captains are part of the machinery to them, present, trusted, and largely invisible. The door closes. You run the checklist. The tower clears you for takeoff. You push the thrust levers forward. The aircraft accelerates and the wheels lift from the runway. You climb through the overcast into darkness. At 8,000 feet, the autopilot is engaged. The engines are stable and every indication is normal. Then the airspeed indications disagree. At first, it does not fail. It behaves strangely. The number on your display rises even though the pitch and power have not changed. Kevin's airspeed falls. A third indication disagrees with both. One display suggests overspeed. Another suggests the aircraft is slowing toward a stall. You cross-check attitude, power, vertical speed, and altitude. Kevin does the same. The autopilot disconnect warning sounds and the controls come alive in your hands. You ask which instrument is lying. Kevin says he cannot tell. For 40 seconds, you try to diagnose the disagreement. You make small corrections, waiting for the instruments to make sense. They do not. In cloud, at night, over rising terrain, the aircraft begins to descend. Then the pattern becomes unmistakable. You set the known pitch and power from memory. Kevin opens a quick reference handbook and confirms the procedure. You declare an emergency and request an immediate turn toward lower terrain. The controller answers, but the warning system speaks over him. Terrain. Terrain. The airspeed data is still useless. The vertical speed indicator shows a descent that began before either of you fully understood it. You add power. You raise the nose. Kevin calls altitude while the ground proximity warning changes from a caution to a command. Pull up. You tell the flight attendants to brace. Your voice remains calm because 11,000 hours of training are working beneath the fear. Calm is not the absence of fear. It is the management of it. The radio altimeter calls 500 feet. The tree line appears through the cloud. You pull with everything you have. Then there is no more remembering for a while. You wake in a seat that is no longer inside an aircraft. The fuselage is broken across a hillside. Rain moves through the trees. Somewhere behind you, someone is calling for help. Somewhere else, there is only silence. You try to stand and your left leg does not move correctly. Your shoulder is out of place. Every breath catches against broken ribs. None of that matters yet. You call Kevin's name. There is no answer. You are alive and you do not understand why. The understanding will take years to arrive, and even then it will remain incomplete. For now, there is only wreckage, darkness, and the knowledge that breathing is more than you can assume for everyone who boarded behind you. First responders reach you 40 minutes after impact. You are conscious. You keep asking the same question. How many survived? They tell you to stay still. They tell you help is coming. They do not give you a number. The not knowing is worse than the pain, and there is considerable pain. Your left leg is broken in 3 places. 4 ribs are fractured. Your shoulder is dislocated. Blood from a cut on your forehead keeps running into one eye. Later, doctors and news reports will call you lucky. You will spend years trying to reconcile that word with the hillside. Lucky. You will turn it over from every angle. It will never become a shape you can hold comfortably. You are airlifted to a trauma center in Asheville and taken directly into surgery. When you wake, it is the next day. Your wife is sitting beside the bed, and her face gives you the answer before she speaks. 23 passengers died. Kevin died. Most of the people behind you survived. The dead and the living take up equal space inside you. The dead were people you were responsible for. The living were people you were responsible for. One number will never feel forgivable. The other will never feel sufficient. Your wife reaches for your hand. You ask her to repeat the numbers. She does. You ask again because your mind refuses to keep them in the same world. NTSB investigators interview you while you are still in the hospital. Your attorney sits beside you. He reminds you that this is a safety investigation, not a criminal proceeding. The distinction matters legally. Emotionally, it changes nothing. The investigators reconstruct the final minutes, one question at a time. What did you see first? When did the autopilot disconnect? Which indication did you trust? When did you set known pitch and power? You answer honestly. When you cannot remember, you say so. When you're uncertain, you say so. You do not defend yourself, and you do not accuse anyone else. You give them every fragment you have, because somewhere inside those fragments is an explanation, and you need it as much as they do. 8 weeks after the crash, you return home. Home feels like a word from someone else's life. Your left leg is held in an external fixator that will remain for 3 more months. You move through the house on crutches, learning how to inhabit a body that has been rearranged. The pain is controlled but never absent. The medication softens your thinking, and that frightens you almost as much as the pain. Sharp thinking has always been the instrument you trust most. Without it, you feel like a pilot in cloud without reliable data. At night, you reconstruct the flight. You change one decision, then another. Every version lands safely. None of them changes the hillside. Your wife becomes a structure holding the family upright. She handles the insurance, the filtered media requests, the food left by neighbors, and the questions from your children. Your daughter is 8. Your son is 11. They know their father was in a plane crash because the story was everywhere. Your son found photographs online before anyone could control what he saw. He watches you differently now. Not with fear exactly, and not with blame. He watches the way passengers watch a cockpit door after turbulence, waiting for some sign that the person responsible still knows what comes next. You wish you could give him that sign. You do not yet have it. One afternoon, your son sits across from you at the kitchen table. Did you make a mistake? You tell him the investigation is still ongoing and that you do not have the complete answer. Are you going to fly again? You tell him you do not know. Do you want to? You are quiet for a long time. Yes, you say. The answer surprises you. Your son nods and returns to his room. You remain at the table, trying to understand where the yes came from. It is not denial. It is not courage. It is something more stubborn than both. The recognition that the crash took control of one flight, and you do not want it to control every flight that could come after it. The psychological weight arrives in waves and never announces itself. 6 weeks after leaving the hospital, a woman recognizes you in the cereal aisle. She says she is sorry. You thank her, walk to your car, and sit in the parking lot for 40 minutes before you can drive home. Another afternoon, you watch your daughter doing homework when the angle of the light across the kitchen suddenly returns you to the hillside. You leave the room without explaining why. These are not dramatic breakdowns. They are arrivals, images, sounds, and sensations that have been traveling towards you since impact, finding you only when your body is quiet enough to receive them. You begin weekly sessions with Dr. Reyes, an aviation psychiatrist who previously flew military aircraft and has treated pilots and first responders after fatal accidents. She does not ask whether you feel guilty. That answer is obvious. She asks what you believe the guilt requires from you. Punishment, you say at first. Months later, your answer changes. Responsibility. The work is not about erasing survivor guilt. It is about learning to carry it without allowing it to become the load-bearing structure of everything else. You do not find therapy easy. You find it necessary. That distinction becomes one of the foundations of your recovery. You attend 3 memorial services for passengers who died. Your attorney advises against attending the others, and you are not certain whether your presence would serve the families or only your own need to stand before them. At the first service, you study the photograph on the program. The woman in it chose a seat, boarded your flight, and extended the same trust every passenger gives a crew. Total, unconscious, and impossible to verify from the cabin. On that morning, you could not carry that trust safely to its destination. You do not look away from the photograph. Accountability, you are learning, is not the same as destroying yourself. It is the refusal to hide from what happened. 4 months after the crash, you write to Kevin's wife. You write the letter 14 times in 2 weeks. In one version, you explain too much. In another, you apologize without knowing what an apology can hold. You mail the 14th version because it is the first one that does not ask her to make you feel better. She replies 3 weeks later. Kevin talked about you, she writes. He liked flying with you. She says she does not blame you, even if you cannot use those words the way she intends them. You read the letter many times. You cannot fully accept what it offers. You are grateful for it anyway. The airline keeps you on paid administrative leave while the investigation continues, and the union represents you. These are standard processes. Nothing about your life feels standard. On Tuesday mornings, your wife goes to work and your children go to school. You remain in a silent house with no aircraft to fly, no crew to brief, and nowhere you are expected to be. For 20 years, aviation organized your time, your attention, and your identity. Now that structure is gone. Its absence is not empty. It has weight. It follows you from room to room. You begin to understand that returning to flight will require more than healed bones. You must determine who you are if the answer is no, before anyone can trust your yes. 14 months after the crash, your physical recovery is declared complete. The fractures have healed. Your shoulder is functional. Your leg required a second surgery and 8 months of physical therapy. You approached rehabilitation like simulator training. Show up, repeat the procedure, measure the smallest improvement, return the next day. Some days the outcome felt impossibly distant. You returned anyway. Complete is a medical word. It means the doctors have recovered what medicine can recover. It does not mean your body has forgotten. It does not mean you have. The physical clearance opens the next door. It does not guarantee what is behind it. The investigation lasts 18 months. The final report identifies several links in the chain. A fault in the pitot heat system that had appeared in the maintenance history but had not been fully resolved, icing more severe than forecast, and a crew response that became procedurally correct 40 seconds later than recommended. 40 seconds. The report does not say the accident had one cause or one person to blame. Aviation accidents rarely offer anything that simple, but the investigators spend months examining those 40 seconds. You will spend the rest of your life examining them. You read the final report in your attorney's office. When you reach the section on crew response, the words seem larger than everything around them. 40 seconds. You remember the conflicting indications, the warning, Kevin's voice, your own hands trying to make three impossible numbers agree. You know why the delay happened. You also know what happened during it. You put the report down and look out the window for a long time. Your attorney says nothing. For once, silence is not avoidance. It is the only honest response a room can offer. While the investigation is ending, the psychological and aeromedical evaluation continues. Dr. Reyes asks questions that cannot be answered with the polished language pilots use during check rides. Do you still reconstruct the accident? What happens when an airspeed indication disagrees? Are you returning because you are ready or because you cannot imagine being anything else? She is not looking for peace. Peace is not the standard. Safety is. She needs to know whether the crash has been integrated into your judgment without taking command of it. You need to accept that the honest outcome might still be no. For the first time, you build a life around the truth rather than the result you want. 20 months after the crash, the evaluation is complete. Dr. Reyes concludes that you are fit to return to flying duties with continued psychological monitoring. You read the sentence 3 times. It is not permission to forget. It is not a declaration that you have defeated what happened. It means you can remember it without allowing the memory to fly the aircraft for you. You put the report down and let yourself feel the result. Not triumph, not relief alone. Something quieter and more durable. You are fit to fly. You earned that conclusion honestly. It belongs to you. Before returning to passengers, you must complete requalification training in a full motion simulator. Your training captain is Ray, a 22-year veteran who knows your history but refuses to treat it as a verdict. During the first session, your hands remember every switch and flow. The hands always remember. Then, at 8,000 feet in night conditions, Ray introduces an airspeed disagreement. Your breathing changes. Your pulse rises. For a fraction of a second, the simulator is no longer a simulator. You identify the failure and run the procedure correctly. Ray does not rescue you from the discomfort. He also does not pretend it did not happen. In the debrief, he asks one question. Were you flying the airplane or were you flying the memory? You know the honest answer is both. You debrief the session with Dr. Reyes and return to the simulator 2 days later. The second session is harder in some ways and easier in others. The third is where something changes. Ray fails the pitot heat in night instrument conditions. The airspeed indicators diverge. This time, you do not wait for impossible data to resolve itself. You call unreliable airspeed, disconnect the automation, set known pitch and power, and direct the checklist. 32 seconds. 8 seconds faster than the delay in the accident. The number reaches a place inside you the investigation report could never touch. You say nothing about it in the debrief. Ray does not need you to. Both of you know what happened in that simulator and what it cost to get there. You complete the simulator program and pass the required proficiency check. The airline schedules supervise operating experience on a different aircraft type, a decision you accept without argument. Your first flight back will be a Tuesday morning in April, 2 years and 4 months after the crash. The night before, you lay out your uniform and check your alarm 3 times. You do not sleep well. When morning comes, You eat a granola bar even though you're not hungry. Some details return because trauma repeats them. Others return because routine is how a pilot turns uncertainty into action. You put on the uniform. You pick up your flight bag. You leave the house. Your first officer is Claire. She knows your history and has been told to treat you as she would any other captain. That is what you requested. You do not need to be handled as fragile. You need a qualified pilot beside you who will challenge you if something is wrong. You review the maintenance log carefully, not fearfully, carefully. You brief the departure, the weather, the threats, and the return plan. Claire responds with the same professional precision you would expect on any flight. Passengers begin to board. Most do not look into the cockpit. For the first time, their indifference feels like trust. The door closes. The checklist begins. You taxi to the runway and hear the controller clear you for takeoff. For 1 second, every sound becomes sharply separate. The airflow, the engines, Claire's breathing, your own hand on the thrust levers. You push them forward. The aircraft accelerates. Claire calls 80 knots. The indications agree. V1, rotate. You raise the nose and feel the exact moment the wheels leave the runway. Your body remembers another tree line, another cockpit, another set of indications. You keep scanning. You keep breathing. You keep flying. The aircraft climbs. At 8,000 feet, the airspeed displays agree with each other and with the attitude and power. Nothing fails. No warning arrives. The ordinary remains ordinary. This time, you recognize it as a gift. At cruise altitude, the autopilot captures and Claire runs the checklist. You sit in the left seat of a functioning aircraft in clear air at 37,000 feet. You're still here. You land, debrief, eat in the crew room, and return to the hotel. That night, you sleep without reconstructing the accident. The next morning, you fly again. Then the next day. Then the next week. The return does not happen in one heroic moment. It happens through repetition, a safe departure, a stable approach, a normal landing. Each ordinary flight rebuilds something the last ordinary morning took away. You keep flying. You are 48 now. You have been back on the line for 5 years and have 13,000 hours. The crash is no longer something that happened to a person you used to be. It is part of the captain you became. Pilots who fly with you can feel the difference. You brief threats more precisely. You challenge assumptions earlier. When an aircraft does not match what it should be telling you, you call it out in the first second, not the 40th. You tell first officers that the most dangerous words in a cockpit are, "I think it's probably fine." You know what probably can cost. When safety organizations invite you to speak, you stand before rooms full of pilots and describe the last ordinary morning. You tell them about Kevin in the crew van, the first impossible airspeed indication, and the 40 seconds spent waiting for the data to make sense. You do not ask them to carry the story as fear. You ask them to carry it as precision. You fly home after one of those seminars and sit in the driveway for a moment before going inside. Nothing is wrong. You have simply learned to take a quiet moment when it is available. Your son is 19 now. He is in his first year of college and he wants to become a pilot. You told him everything. The maintenance entry, the weather, the conflicting instruments, the 40 seconds, the hillside, the people who did not come home, and the work it took to enter a cockpit again. He wants to do it anyway. You recognize in him the same unreasonable certainty you once carried. The belief that the sky is not merely above you, but something you are already part of. Inside, the kitchen light is warm. Your wife sits at the table with a cup of tea. You put down your bag and sit across from her. The crash did not become smaller. Your life became large enough to carry it. You're home. Tonight, that is enough.